warning that shook everyone you know. Sometimes one sentence can break the silence of a family that's already on the brink. And for sister wives, it happened just that way when Christine stared Janelle down and said, "Just shut up about the grandkids." When I initially heard it, I was stunned. Like, wait, what? Did Christine seriously just say that? And more than that, why? Because if you've been watching the drama show between these two, you know it's not about words. It's about years of accumulated hurt, trust issues, and love for family that's slowly morphing into resentment. The air between Janelle and Christine has always been tense, cordial on occasion, even sisterly, but inside, there's always been this silent competition. A silent battle as to who was loyal longer, hurt less, and finally walked away stronger. And now, with Janelle's abrupt choice to relocate to North Carolina, it's as if someone just tore open an old scar that never fully healed. Christine's response wasn't anger. It was betrayal coated with disbelief. She didn't say shut up about the grandkids out of spite. She said it out of heartbreak, out of fear that Janelle, her former confidant, was about to make the same mistakes that tore their whole world apart. Watching that scene, I felt Christine's frustration myself. You could see it in her eyes, that mix of weariness and determination. Because to her, the grandkids weren't kids. They were her bridge to what's left of their family. The last chip of innocence in a tale that's become too burdened with bitterness. And then Janelle, reasonable, rational, but aloof, mentioning she could move near her kids in North Carolina. It sounds harmless at first, doesn't it? But to Christine, it sounded like a goodbye she wasn't prepared to hear. That was when everything broke. Christine's voice turned brusque. Her voice trembled, and those words, "just shut up about the grandkids," fell out like a reflex she couldn't handle. The quiet after that was deafening than any shout. And the thing is, if you've watched Sister Wives for long enough, you know Christine isn't mean. She's sensitive. She's nurturing. And when she feels like she's losing custody of the only family she has left, she clashes not with placidity, but with flames. At that moment, I believe she wasn't really talking to Janelle. She was talking to her own past. The one that lingered too long, that forgave too much, that remained silent when things were crumbling. So when she told her to shut up, what she actually meant was, don't deny there's a problem when there is. But here's the twist. Janelle didn't leave. She stood her ground, quiet, stunned, and perhaps only slightly wounded. You could practically see the query in her eyes. How dare Christine say that? Because this wasn't some squabble over nothing. This was a boundary pushed between two women who once shared the same hurt, the same lover, and the same broken dream. And that is what makes it so chilling, because hidden beneath that singular outburst is something more. A warning, a message Christine wasn't even aware she was sending. Don't take the same road I did. Don't get lost in the cause of family again. And trust me, that was only the start. Because following that moment, everything between Christine and Janelle began to change. The smiles grew strained, the chats brief, and each time someone said the grandkids, Christine's face would change, just enough for the cameras to notice. But what actually lies behind those scenes? Why is Christine sounding so petrified of Janelle's move? And what truth is she concealing under that outrage? That's where things turn ugly, more emotional, and way more personal than anyone anticipated. Christine's hidden fear, the move that could break the family forever. You see, the more I thought about that moment, Christine snapping at Janelle, the more I understood it wasn't about words. It was something deeper, something that had been building under the surface for years, and sincerely, I believe Christine's outburst wasn't actually anger. It was fear, a certain kind of fear, the fear of being left behind. Because think about it, after all she's been through with Cody, after the family's disintegration, after the constant emotional tug-of-war, the one thing Christine had always had was connection. Her children, the grandchildren, the small, perfect, messy moments when she felt like the whirlwind was worth it. And now, listening to Janelle go on about moving to North Carolina, it wasn't geography. It was distance, emotional distance. Christine's thoughts likely ran wild. If Janelle leaves, if the grandkids accompany her, what is left of this family? That isn't melodrama. That's a woman scared of losing what little is left of her heart. I remember seeing Christine's face when Janelle said the words North Carolina. She smiled initially, that nice, rehearsed smile you put on when you're trying to be fine. But her eyes said something else. There was this flash, just for a moment, of fear. It was as if she saw the future unwinding right before her eyes, and it terrified her to death. Because deep inside, Christine knows how quickly love can disappear. She's watched it happen before. She's experienced the gradual loss of affection, the emotional rejection, the empty promises. So when Janelle told her she was moving closer to her kids, Christine didn't listen for love. She listened for goodbye. And that's why her voice cracked when she snapped. Just shut up about the grandkids. Because those were not words of anger, they were words of sorrow. And let's get real. Christine and Janelle's friendship has always been complex. They're sisters by choice, not biology. They've stood together through heartache, laughed together through tears, and stood up for each other when Cody's reality began crumbling. But there's also been rivalry, comparison, and unspoken anger. Christine was the first to go, the bold one, the one who finally said enough. And for a while, she was the hero, the icon of independence. But now, watching Janelle perhaps moving on, finding peace, maybe even flourishing, that makes something restive inside Christine, not because she wishes Janelle failure, but because she doesn't wish to be alone with still being broken. It's like she made the initial step towards freedom, but the path grew emptier than she had envisioned, and watching Janelle move away and pack up only served a reminder how quickly people can drift away, even the ones who swore they would remain. I'll be honest with you, there's something poignant about that dynamic. Christine's power has always been in being needed, being the glue, the caretaker. And now, for the very first time, nobody's counting on her. Janelle's making her move. The grandkids are coming of age, and Christine's standing there, finally comprehending that she can't dictate what comes next. So she strikes out, not because she dislikes Janelle, but because she already misses her. When she said shut up about the grandkids, it was a scream, not cruelty, a desperate bid to shield herself from the anguish of picturing life where those grandkids don't charge through her living room anymore, where Sunday dinners are silent, and where the only sound remaining is the echo of what's been lost. That's not anger. That's heartbreak, and you can see it in the way Christine's voice changes when she speaks of family now. It's softer, but there's a hint of weariness, as if she's arguing with herself that everything's okay. But she knows it's fading away again. It's strong to see a person who once was the emotional hub of things suddenly recognize she's no longer at the helm of her narrative. It's like for so long, Christine struggled to break free from Cody's emotional prison, but now that she's out, she's finding a different sort of loneliness, the sort when you find out that freedom also requires letting go. And this is the surprise, that no one anticipated. Christine's advice to Janelle wasn't actually about North Carolina, it was about doing the same emotional errors over and over again, opting for space instead of healing, silence instead of confrontation, and pride instead of vulnerability. As she spoke, her voice shaking, saying, "You're making the same mistake I did." And for that one moment, Janelle seemed to get it. But then she retreated, composed, cool, and aloof, like always, and that's when Christine's walls went up totally. That's why she snapped. Because when feelings are that intense, sometimes anger is the only language left that still gets heard. You could have almost felt the tension seep through the television. Christine storming, Janelle quiet, the silence heavy with all that had not been said. And I recall thinking, this is more than a fight between two women. This is a reflection of every shattered relationship that's ever tried to cling as it disintegrates. Because buried beneath all the screams and weeping is a fact so plain it hurts. They both just want to be seen, to be understood, to be chosen. And in that one moment, both of them realized maybe neither of them ever truly was. But this story doesn't end here, because after Christine's outburst, something changed in Janelle too. The calm, collected woman we've always known started to crack, just a little, and the secret she's been keeping, no one saw coming. Janelle's secret scheme, and the words that shattered Christine's heart. You know, when Christine uttered those 6 brutal words, "Just shut up about the grandkids," I figured that would be the end. A hurtful tirade, some tears, perhaps a chilly silence that would eventually pass. But what ensued? No one anticipated, because Janelle did not defend herself. She did not scream. She did not stand up for herself like she always does. Instead, she gazed at Christine, serene to serene, and spoke words that utterly altered the atmosphere of the room. She said, "Christine, everything is not about you anymore." And I swear, the air was frozen. For one fleeting moment, Christine's eyes widened, not with anger, but with shock, because those words cut deeper than anything she'd heard in years. I remember watching that scene, and my heart sank. Not because Janelle was cruel, but because in that one sentence, she exposed everything Christine had been afraid to admit. For so long, Christine was the emotional hub of that family, the one who felt everything, repaired everything, kept everyone together while she herself was falling apart. But Janelle's words stung like a mirror, reminding her that the world was moving on. even if she wasn't, and that's when it struck me. This wasn't a battle of sisters. It was a crash between past and future. Christine still bears the welts of everything that went wrong, every promise shattered, every tear cried. But Janelle, she's trying to leave it behind. Not to forget, but to survive. Now, let's talk about that North Carolina plan. Because at first it sounded simple. Janelle wanted a fresh start, closer to her kids and grandkids. But there's more to it. Behind that calm voice, that polite tone, Janelle's been planning something bigger. From what I've seen, this isn't just a relocation, it's a quiet act of reinvention. She's been browsing real estate, consulting with her sons, even considering a tiny family business venture. There it's as if she's crafting a life that's no longer centered around the Sister Wives universe anymore, and that's what finally unsettled Christine. Because for the first time, Janelle isn't seeking permission. She isn't calling to check in. She's making decisions on her own. Independently. To Christine, that autonomy is abandonment. But to Janelle, it's just finally peace. And that's where the heartbreak is. Because you can see it. The ache behind Christine's harsh tone, the fissures in her laughter, the weight in her silence. She's learning something she never wanted to know. That love doesn't always bind people together. Sometimes, it just shows them how to let go. So when she tiraded over the grandkids, what she actually meant was, don't leave me behind again. And when Janelle retorted, not everything's about you anymore, what she actually meant was, I need to heal. Too, that's what makes it so emotional. They're both correct, and both incorrect at the same time. They're battling not against one another, but against the specters of who they once were. There's a moment that still sends shivers down my spine. In the wake of that fight, Christine walks away. She doesn't bang a door. She doesn't weep immediately. She just sits in her car, mute, gazing ahead, and the camera holds long enough for you to notice her eyes begin to well. Then she says in a whisper, really to herself, I thought we were in this together. That single sentence destroyed me. Because that's the reality of Sister Wives. That's not simply about marriages or relationships. It's the unspoken vow between women who've known everything, happiness, sadness, heartache, and then suddenly see they're on different paths. But the kicker no one anticipated. While Christine was drowning in guilt and anger, Janelle was making one last move, literally and emotionally. A few days later, she packed her things quietly. No announcement, no tears on camera, just a calm, steady decision. And when a producer asked her if she'd told Christine yet, she smiled softly and said, no, she'll see it when I'm gone. That moment, that silence, said everything. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't rebellion. It was acceptance. Acceptance that not all bonds endure change. Acceptance that occasionally love is doing what's necessary and letting go, without making a spectacle of things. When I saw that, I didn't get angry at either of them. I got sad, because this was more than a friendship breaking down at this point. They were broken women who had once drawn strength from each other's suffering. Christine, the heart, Janelle, the peaceful one. And now, both lingering at the precipice of a goodbye neither of them wanted in the first place. And that is when Christine finally spoke up for the first time in a confession. Her voice low, shaking, she uttered, I wasn't angry with her. I was afraid. Afraid I'll lose her too if she goes away. That's when you realize, behind all the melodrama, behind the caustic insults and trending headlines, this is actually a story about fear of loss. About clutching too tightly to something that's already slipping away from your grasp. Just perhaps, that's the emotional reality we all need to confront. Christine's emotional breakdown and Janelle's silent goodbye. You know the feeling when silence speaks louder than words ever could? That's precisely what transpired after Janelle departed. No yelling, no big confrontation, no sobbing goodbye, only silence. And that silence shattered Christine in ways I don't think anyone anticipated. For the first time in a very long time, the house seemed empty. Not the type of empty you remedy with music or giggles. The type of empty that resounds. The kind that accompanies you from room to room, reminding you of all you've lost. I recall sitting in that confessional and watching Christine. Her voice low, eyes lidded with fatigue. She said, you think you're ready for peace until it arrives. And you discover it's solitary. That line cut me differently. Because isn't that what freedom tends to feel like? You struggle so desperately to get away from the pain, yet when the noise is gone, you begin missing even the turmoil. Christine attempted to distract herself, spending time with her kids, cooking, smiling in front of the camera, but you knew. It wasn't genuine. There was a delicacy to it, like someone attempting to rebuild their life with fragments that no longer fit. And then one afternoon, while sorting out an old drawer, she discovered something, a written note, faded, and shoved behind a photo frame. It was from Janelle, written months prior to the blow-up. The note read, "No matter where we end up, you'll always be my family." That's when Christine broke, like really broke. Tears, trembling hands, the whole works. Because that letter, that line, made her remember Janelle. Never stopped loving. She just needed to love herself. 2. From the moment on, you could feel the change in Christine's energy. The rage began to dissipate, replaced by something worse, regret. She revealed in a soft confession, "I pushed her away because I didn't want to feel left behind again. But maybe I left her no choice." That candor, that's the kind of unfiltered emotion that makes Sister Wives more than a reality show. It's a reflection of what goes wrong when love becomes survival. And in the meantime, Janelle was getting used to life in North Carolina. Photos of her smiling with her kids and grandkids began popping up on the internet. She was lighter, calmer, nearly serene. But here's what crushed fans even more. Christine was shown those photos as well. She made no public comments, but sources claimed she was quietly, emotionally, because she knew Janelle had found what they both spent years trying to find: stability. Perhaps that was what Christine was, cautioning her against all along, not the move, not the distance, but the cost of reinventing yourself when everything you know is lost. Then there was the reunion episode. Oh, the drama was thick. When Christine and Janelle finally stood face to face, the room went silent. You could sense the past between them, the laughter, the tears, the heartbreak. They didn't embrace immediately. They didn't even talk for a second. Then Christine, her voice hardly steady, spoke. "You didn't tell me you were leaving." Janelle met her eyes, steady but gentle, and said, "You told me to shut up about the grandkids, so I did." Boom. That line exploded like a THUNDERCLAP. It wasn't cruel, it was truth. Hurtful, poetic truth, because in one sentence, she reminded Christine that words are powerful. They don't necessarily disappear over time. Sometimes, they leave scars that never heal. Christine set her eyes on the ground. You could see every bit of guilt, regret, and heartache come over her. For a moment, it seemed like she was going to leave again, but then she smiled, a small, shaking, shattered smile, and said, "I suppose I deserved that." And that's when something amazing occurred. Janelle came up and wrapped her in a hug, not a big hug, not a theatrical one, just in time, just long enough to say, "I forgive you," just long enough to say, "We're all right." And they're in the midst of that still, chaotic, emotional space. The tension at last relaxed, not with bellowing, not with resolution, but with comprehension. Once it aired, there were split fans. Some accused Christine of being manipulative. Others accused Janelle of being cold. But in all honesty, watching it all go down, I saw two women attempting to reinvent their narrative in real time. They're not flawless. They're not evil. They're just human, dealing with love, loss, and the paralyzing art of getting over someone. And perhaps that's why people can't get enough, because at the back of the tears, the theatrics, the heartbreak, there's a truth that resonates with every single person who's ever lost someone unintentionally. Christine closed the episode on one last line that I will never forget. She addressed the camera directly, wiped away her tears, and uttered, "You don't realize how heavy love is until you try to carry it alone." And just like that, the screen went black. This was not a mere episode. It was an emotional autopsy, the dissection of friendship, the anatomy of regret, and the painful beauty of acceptance. Tears, tension, betrayal, and ultimately, peace. What Christine really meant by her warning. You ever have one of those moments when you rewind a scene in your head over and over again, trying to figure out what you actually meant when you spoke in anger? That's what Christine's been doing ever since that fight, because deep down, shut up about the grandkids wasn't cruelty, it was confession. It was the only way she knew how to say, "I'm scared of losing the last piece of us." And that's where the emotional reality of this entire story resides. Not in the argument, not in the move, not in who was right or wrong, but in the fear of disappearing. Following the reunion episode, Christine had a one-on-one confessional. Her voice was more stable now, yet you could still detect that tremble beneath the surface. She replied, "Everyone thought I was mad at Janelle, but I wasn't. I was mad at time, at how quick it goes, at how it snatches people away from you before you can let them go." That struck home. Because if you take the drama away, what you're left with is something we all experience, that pain of seeing life continue without you. I saw her draw a deep breath, eyes blurring but peaceful, and then she spoke in a whisper. When I said to her to shut up about the grandkids, I didn't say shut up. I said, don't cut me out of their lives. And there it was. The truth we'd all been holding our breath for. Christine's caution wasn't about dominance. It was about belonging. She wasn't guilt-tripping Janelle. She was pleading with her not to vanish. Because family too. Christine isn't just about love, it's about being home. And when that sense of home begins to fade, folks do the only thing they can. Some sob, some back away, and some, like Christine, lash out before the ache becomes too deep. What's crazy is, when producers played back that clip to Janelle later, she didn't become defensive, she just nodded, and for the first time on camera, she actually cried. She said, I didn't know she felt that way. I thought she was just angry. I wish she'd told me sooner. That one sentence sealed the deal. 2. Women who'd invested years in misunderstanding one another, at last hearing the same truth from both sides of suffering. And in all honesty, that's the emotional heart of Sister Wives' emotional truth. It's not merely a program about group marriages or family conflict. It's a narrative about human connection, about how love, when stretched too thin, begins to fray. About how individuals who once shared everything with one another can still get lost to each other in the space between sentences. Christine's warning was never to cause harm. It was a plea from the part of her that still hopes family can be salvaged. Even when everyone else has gone on, in her last confessional, Christine stared straight into the camera. No tears, no fury, just calm truthfulness. She said, if I could take it back, I wouldn't. Because sometimes, the truth has to hurt before it heals. That line, wow, it's the kind of line that freezes you in your scroll, makes you look at the screen, and reflect on every battle you've ever fought that was born of love masquerading as rage. Once filming wrapped, sources told us Christine privately reached out to Janelle. No cameras, no producers, no scripts, just a call, long overdue. They spoke for hours, laughed a little, wept a lot. And when they finally hung up, they weren't magically whole. But they were reaching, and sometimes that's all we can do. So what exactly was Christine trying to tell her with that warning? She was saying, don't make your closure so far away that I'm excluded from it. She was saying, don't let our tale end with silence. And above all, she said, even if we're apart, don't forget that once we were family. Because in the end, the moves, the fights, the tears, what you're left with is this bittersweet fact. Love doesn't always look like holding on. Sometimes. It's learning how to let go without hating what came before. And that's what makes this story unforgettable, Christine used to say. I thought we were in this together. Perhaps now, in a quieter, more truthful manner, they still are. The emotional fallout fans respond. Secrets emerge, and the future of Sister Wives when the reunion special aired. Social media went crazy. The comment sections flooded within minutes. Tears, shock, anger, sympathy, all at once. Some watched Christine's side. She's just guarding her heart. Others took Janelle's. She's owed peace, not shame. And then there was the silent majority. Mumbling what everyone secretly knew, they both broke a bit that day. That's what I love and hate about reality television simultaneously. We see people's most vulnerable moments, then judge them before they can even begin to heal. But the reality? Behind each clip and confession are human hearts attempting to find sense in their own histories. The online tempest, the hashtag #SisterWives emotional truth, trended overnight. Fan edits began appearing on TikTok. Christine wiping away tears in slow motion. Janelle walking away with the title, Sometimes Goodbye Means Healing. People argued everything, Christine's tone, Janelle's silence, even the background music in that confession. But buried beneath all the hubbub was something lovely. Empathy. Fans wrote about family brawls that happened in their own homes, about friendships ruined by distance or ego. This was no longer just about two women on television. This was about us all. Christine's quiet days once, production ceased. Christine stepped away from the limelight. She shared less, seemed more at peace, nearly as if she was breathing anew for the first time in years. In a tiny live stream, she mentioned, peace isn't loud. Sometimes it just feels like finally being able to sit still. Fans paid attention to something new. The twinkle in her laugh wasn't missing. It had merely softened. You knew she was on the mend, gradually, in seclusion, no more proving, no more fighting, just being. And somewhere in that quiet, she began to reconnect with herself. She began volunteering at a shelter in her community, spending time with her children, and laughing at little, everyday things, the kind of things that don't go viral, but heal you in ways that no fame ever could. Janelle's new chapter. And in North Carolina, Janelle's life was looking entirely different. Her mornings began with coffee on the porch, her grandkids playing in the yard, laughter ringing instead of arguing. She appeared free for the first time in years. Months later, in an interview, she told me something that I couldn't shake. I didn't move to leave anyone behind. I moved to find myself again. That's when I understood both women had been pursuing the same thing all along. Peace. They simply went down different paths to discover it. The private reunion months later, after all, had aired. Sources reported Christine and Janelle ran into each other in private this time. No cameras, no mics, no production notes. Just two old friends seated across from one another with tea in between and 1,000 memories hanging in the air. They didn't reminisce about the fight. They didn't even discuss much about the show. They spoke of the grandkids, of laughter, of the goofy things that once made them sisters. Someone who witnessed them that day remarked, "They looked tired, but at peace, like two individuals who had finally forgiven life for being complicated." The emotional truth when you back away from all the soap opera, this is what's left. To women who trudged through flames, torched a couple of bridges, and managed to find light again on the other side, Christine's warning wasn't the end of it all. It was the beginning of something truer, honesty. Janelle's silence wasn't rejection. It was her way of saying, "I need space to breathe." And now, after all of the tears, tension, and betrayal, both of them finally get what Sister Wives was always intended to demonstrate, that love does not perish when families are sundered. It merely transforms. The legacy in the last montage of that season, there is a second where hardly anyone caught it. Christine sits near a window, smiling gently as a child's laughter fills the air. It's one of Janelle's grandkids stopping by for the weekend. Christine turns towards the camera and says, "See? We still find our way back." And that one little line wraps everything up. Because no matter how far apart they end up, their stories are bound together by something greater than hurt. Shared history. They may not live side by side anymore. They may not call each other every day, but they realize now that healing isn't forgetting, it's remembering, without the pain dominating the memory. So when I glance back at all of this saga, the yelling, the quiet, the heartbreak, I don't see enemies, I see survivors. I see women who had the courage to tell their truth, even if it emerged in messy and noisy and human dot. Christine once told us, "You don't realize how heavy love is until you try to carry it alone." Now she's learned you don't have to carry it alone. You just have to carry it differently. And Janelle? She showed us that peace doesn't always come from fixing things. Sometimes it comes from walking away, with love still in your heart. Tears, tension, betrayal, and finally, understanding. That's the actual emotional reality of Sister Wives. So, if you're watching and you've ever lost a loved one, a friend, a sister, a chunk of family, keep this in mind. Closure doesn't always appear like the end. Sometimes it appears like two people smiling again after everything that shattered them. And that's a wrap on today's dive into the Sister Wives' emotional truth. If you felt this story, click like, leave a comment, and let me know what moment struck you the most. Because let me tell you, every sentence of this journey was a reminder that even fractured bonds can still hold love.